Alright, now this video is going to be very different. In this one, I am going to make a bracket for a mirror, actually a round mirror that I have that looks like, well, this one. So, well, it's actually a mirror, as you can see. So that's the back panel. And currently, I mean, this is just a mirror. Don't ask me why I have got this mirror, but I just have it. So I want to hang it on the wall, but I don't have anything to do with that. I mean, the metallic brackets are not going to work properly here and they may scratch it. So I'm using plastic, PLA for this. So what I'm going to do is I'll make 3 brackets for this mirror. And first I'll take its measurement and all, and after that we'll just hang it using those 3 brackets. So essentially I'll show you the step-by-step method of taking the measurement using this mirror as our reference. We'll take the measurement, use that to create the brackets, 3D print it, and yeah, that's the steps. And yeah, that's how we'll make the final product from start to finish. So let's get started. This video is sponsored by JLC PCB. More about them later in the video. Alright, so the 2 measurements that we need are the thickness of this mirror, and the second measurement is of course its circumference. Now of course we just simply cannot measure its circumference using a vernier, it's quite small, so we'll use a different method, and for that I'm going to be using this A4 size sheet of paper. So what I'll do is simply I'll put this paper right underneath this and I'll just slip it like this, and now I'll make simple sketch. Alright, and that will be the circumference. We don't need to just measure it, we'll directly just pull it in Fusion 360 and that will be all. So let's try that. Maybe I'll just move it slightly up and let's move it back and let's place it again. Okay, there we are. Now here we have the pen. Let's trace it. So simply I'll trace this like so. Alright, and done. That's all we need. So here we have the circumference. Now I'm going to just import this paper in Fusion 360 and then we'll use it. But we also need the thickness of this mirror. So let's measure that now. So I'll just maybe move it like this. Let's turn it on and set it to 0. And its thickness is, I'll just move it like this and let me measure it. So basically I'll just measure it from here carefully without breaking it. All right, that happens to be about, well, actually 3.50. So 3.49 mm or 3.50. So that's the thickness. All right, so yeah, we've got the thickness of this mirror and also its circumference. Now let's go to Fusion 360. All right, so let's start the scanner. So here I'll click on new scan and I'm just going to select scan for this. All right, and here it is. So just this simple arc. Let's save it. So save as, and maybe I'll save it on desktop. So desktop, and let's call it arc, and I'm saving it as JPEG. Now I'm going to just insert this JPEG file in Fusion 360. So let's start with Fusion. All right, so here we are in Fusion 360. Now let's bring that scanned image here and then we'll use it to make the 3D part, 3D bracket actually. So for that, I'll go to insert and canvas. Now I'll select insert from my computer and of course desktop, and here we have this arc. That's the one which I'm going to insert here. So arc and open. Now you just need to select a plane. In this case, I'll select this plane, the right one, and well, here we are. So currently, whatever the scale is, orientation and everything else is, I'll just leave it at default, and with that I'll click OK, and it's added here. Alright, now it's time to calibrate its size and also, well, change its scale. And to do that, well, we just need to go to this canvases, expand it, and here we have this arc image that we just now added. Now to change it, I'll select, right click, and I'll select edit canvas. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is this. I'll rotate this so that it turns 90 degrees clockwise. Alright. Now the second thing is its scale, and for that I'll select, right click and select calibrate. Now we can select 2 points. So maybe let's first click on this right plane and let's just select 2 points. Now before I can, well, select the 2 points, let me press escape so that you can see the boundary here, and this one is a clearly visible boundary, and that's the one I'm going to use. Now as you know, size of A4 paper is 297 mm by 210 mm. So we know that this distance from this point to this is 210 mm, and that's what I'm going to use as a reference. So let's do the calibration again. So right click, calibrate, and I'll zoom in and I'll select this point right here. End of that paper, pan it and select this point again right here. Now this distance is 17. Let's make it 210 mm, enter and done. Alright, now in this case we are already using mm as the unit, but if you want to see your current units, you can go to this option and check your unit. You can even change it from here if you want to. Well, in this case we don't need to, so I'll just leave it. Alright, so now the paper is calibrated, so size and everything should be, well, proper. It's time to make the sketches. So let's go to sketch, select the plane and done. Now I'll start with 3-point arc. So let's go to create arc, 3-point arc, and I'll select first point, second point right about maybe here, and third point here, so that it kind of forms an arc like this. All right, now maybe I'll just move it slightly like so. Okay, so here we are. You know what? The size is really big. I'll maybe make it smaller, and this is about right. Let's make these 2 points horizontal. So I'll select this point and control select this point and then horizontal. All right, now I'll type D for distance and this one. So now as you can see, it is close to 177. So I'll just leave that value 177. And you know what? I'll just make it 177.6. So whatever that value is, I'll keep that. Okay, so that's also done. Now the next step is, well, remaining geometries here. But before I do that, I'll add a few construction geometries. So I'll add the first one here, this line, and let's select it, type X to convert it into construction geometry. And also let's maybe move it on this point. So I'll just select it and control select this point, and I'll select this midpoint so that this line is exactly on the midpoint. Okay, so that is done. Now we no longer need this image as well, so we can hide it. So I'll just go to canvas and I'll click on this eye, and that's going to hide it. Okay, so we have the arc and we have this construction geometry. Now we're going to use it to make the remaining part of this. So let's go to line, click on this point, and I'm going to make it like that, and I'll track this point, click here and then here. Done. Okay, now some dimensions. So I'll type D and I'll add the height. So from this point, well, to this line. Now I'm going to make it 80 mm or 8 centimeter. And also this distance. Now this distance is no longer required because we've already added it, but it is approximately 67.296. So we are not going to add it. So I'll just press escape key. Now the next step is an offset arc. So I'll go to offset, select this, and in this case I'll make sure that change selection is off. So click, and now this distance. So this should be at least 4 mm. So I'm going to type 4 here, tab key, and well, that's about it. Now 4 mm is actually very thin. So let's just make it, what about 6? Well, that's about good. So I'll just keep it at 6 mm and click OK. All right, so now let's trim the extra edges. So I'll go to trim this part, and I'll also trim this part right here. And you know what? We can now add maybe one more arc, and I'll leave the distance or the radius here in this case, and that's still the 6 unit radii. Okay, so that is done. Now, the next thing is hole for the screw. So I'll go to circle, I'll add one right about here. Of course, this is big, so we'll take care of it in a moment. But for now, let's change a few other things. Here it is 80 mm, which is quite big. I think we should make it smaller because of course this is going to consume a lot of PLA for 3D printing, and it makes no sense making it kind of this big. So maybe I'll make it smaller. So I'll just change that size to 36. All right, now this should go inside as well. And I'll type D, and this one, I'll make it 4.5. Now I'm doing that because the diameter of our screw is 4.12. So as it is 4.12, I'll just leave room for the hole and I'll make it 4.5. Now the next is again a construction geometry from here to here. I'll select, type X, I'll move it here. So select this and make it coincident, which is this. Now this thickness is also, well, pretty large. So let's change it now. So I'll type D, and from this point to this, we can now add the distance of maybe 40. All right, now that's manageable. Looks good. So we only need to add this height. So type D, and from this point to this, it is, let's say, 22. All right. So that's also done. Now we can also add fillets here. So let's go to fillet, select this, and I'll add fillet of 10 units. So 10, enter, done. Now it is still not fully constrained, and that's because of this. All right, let's fix it. Select this one and make it vertical. All right, now it is done. Now it is fully constrained. So this part of the drawing is done. Let's convert it into 3D. So exit the sketch, go to extrude, select this feature and extrude it out. So in this case, the extruded distance should be something about 5 mm. All right, so 5 and done. All right. Now I'll also go to sketch and bring it back. So I'll click here so that this part is also visible. Go to extrude, right here, extrude it. Now this distance, I'll make it 12. All right, and click OK. All right, so we've got both of these parts extruded. And now we can make the next feature. Now for the next feature, I'll go to construction plane and I'll select plane tangent to face and at a point. All right, now it should be tangent here. And for the point, I'm going to select this. All right, so the plane is this one. Click OK. And now I'm going to select the plane and sketch. Let's make the sketches. So go to rectangle, and here I'll make the first rectangle. I'll click here and I'll make the second rectangle. Now the mirror thickness is 4 mm, but I'll leave a little bit of room for it. So D, and this is the gap for mirror, and I'll leave it at 5. So 1 mm tolerance. All right, so here, and I'll make it 3, and this should be 4 right here. Of course, we don't need to add it, so I'll leave it. Now I'll select this line, and this one, and I'll make it all collinear. And we are done. Finish this sketch, and we can now extrude these two features as well. So let's go to features, and I'll select this and this. Let's extrude it up. And as you can see, it is making a cut feature, which we don't need. So I'll select join from here, and that's about right. All right, now about the height. Well, you can select any height for this. In this case, I think 10 mm is just about good. So I'll leave it at 10 mm and click OK. And done. Let's hide the sketch, the previous one, and there we are. So this is the bracket that we need, but there are few modifications also that I need to make here. Well, the first one is this edge. Now, of course, we don't want it like this. Let's add a support, and for adding support, I'm going to use chamfer. So I'll go to modify, chamfer, and right here I'm adding a chamfer. I'll move it out, and maybe I'll add it off 6 unit distance, 6 mm. Press enter, and I'll add one more chamfer. So I'll go to chamfer, and I'll add a chamfer here as well. And this one is 3 mm because we have a V head for our screw. So it's going to fit it in here properly. So 3 and OK, and done. So our bracket is complete. All right, so now that we have made this part, let's send it to a 3D printer. But before we do that, I'll make 3 copies of this because I want 3 brackets, and these 3 brackets are going to hold that mirror in place. So for that, let's now go to modify and select this move/copy, and I'll click here maybe on this point, and now I'll click on this option, create copy, select it and move it towards right. Click OK. Let's maybe repeat this one more time. Select, and now that's the proper option. So create copy, here it is, move it, and done. All right, so here we are. We've got 3 copies, but these 3 are 3 separate bodies. We need to ensure that they are all just one single body. And to do that, I'm going to just select this plane and create a sketch, and I'll just create a rectangle that looks like this. And that's just a formality. It is hardly of any significance here. So I'll just exit out of this sketch. I'll select extrude, select this rectangle, actually, well, this entire thing here, and I'll extrude it in this direction. Now, what should be, well, the operation, it should be join. We want to join it all into one, and the distance, it is -2 mm. Actually, I'll make it -1 because it's just a formality. So it should be thin enough so that we can break it later. Actually, you know what? I'll make it even thinner, maybe 0.4. All right, and click OK. So that's done. So with that, and actually we may need to change its direction. It is just extruding it in this direction. That is not right. So let's change that too. So I'll select the extrude feature and edit feature. And all I need to do is just add a minus sign here, tab, and we are done. Click OK, and here it is. We can later break it. Okay, so now it's a single unit. We can send it to our slicer. Now I'm using Cura as my slicer, but if you are using something else, well, feel free to use that. Any slicer is just fine. If you are not using any slicer, then you can export it as an STL and you can send it to 3D print on demand service like JLC PCB, and they will 3D print it for you and send it to your address. So even if you don't have a 3D printer, you still have option of creating all the kind of parts that you need, and you can send it to JLC PCB for print on demand. Let me show you both the methods. First, I'll send it to the slicer and then I'll export it as an STL. For that, I'll go to Utilities and I'll select 3D print. And here in the selection, I'll just select this body. Any single body is fine because it's all connected. And if you want to see the mesh, select and the mesh will show up. In this case, it hardly matters, and I've already selected my custom slicer, which is Cura, so I don't need to do anything here. I'll simply click OK. Now, it's going to launch Ultimaker Cura. All right, let me just bring it here. Now, in Ultimaker Cura, well, let me just resize this window first. We have this. So, this entire piece. I'll select it, and the first thing is rotate. So, I'll just rotate it by this green axis, and the angle will be 90 degrees so that it sits on this bed. All right, that's all we need. Now select slice, and it's going to take about 3 hours and 8 minutes and 25 gram PLA. Well, that's just fine. Let's 3D print it. So I'll select save to disk, and we have the G code file ready. So here is the G code. Let's call it mirror bracket and save, and we are done. Now that's how you can create the G code. We'll later send this G code to the 3D printer. Now, if you don't want to use it in your 3D printer, then you can also export it as an STL. And for that also, you can go to Utilities and here select this 3D print option or simply click here. Now, the only thing that you need to uncheck is this, send to 3D print utility. Just uncheck this. In the format, still keep STL selected, or you can even select OBJ or 3MF if you want. In this case, I'll select STL. Now, select the part, click OK, and now you can save that STL file. So here also, I'll just go to desktop and I'll save mirror bracket. As this one is not a G code file using same name, we can save it. So mirror bracket, STL, save, and done. Now you can use this STL on JLC PCB to get a coat. I'll show you that as well. So if you don't have a 3D printer, or even if you have one, but it is limited by the material type, for example, if it can only print ABS, nylon, or maybe PLA only, and you want SLA printing for a finer quality, in that case, you can use JLC PCB to order your 3D printed components directly. Let me show you how easy it is. So simply go to jlcpcb.com, resources, and select 3D printing. That's going to take you to this page. Click on Get Instant Code. Now here, I'll simply select my own bracket STL file. So I'll click on Add 3D Files, select that. And here I've only got that first piece of file. It's not connected. I mean, I've not connected the 3 separate components into one. It's just one single file here. Now, as you can see, if you want, you can even select ABS here if you want, but I'll select SLA because, well, it has really very fine quality and it will look a lot more polished than ABS. So with that, you can also select the material type, you can select the color if it's available, and do you need sanding or not. Now here you can select the quantity. So we want 3 of these. So let's just add 3 pieces here, and for 3 brackets all you need to spend is just 4.59 USD. Now select your country, save to cart, and order your parts, and it will be delivered to your doorstep. It's as easy as that. So even if you don't have a 3D printer and it's still you want to get your parts delivered to your doorstep with a really great quality, then JLC PCB is the service you should choose. All right, now it's off to 3D printer. So it will take a few hours to just 3D print this thing entirely, and I'm currently using PLA for 3D printing this. I'm also using the bed temperature of 60 degrees Celsius just to ensure that it sticks on bed properly, and the nozzle temperature currently is 200 degrees Celsius. And also the infill percentage that I'm using for this is 30%, which I think is quite sturdy. So with that, let's leave it for a few hours and then I'll show you the final result. Alright, and here we are. We have got the three 3D printed brackets. Now all we need is a little bit of cleanup for these supports. So I'll just clean these supports and we are good to go. Not only that, if I show you the screw, it actually fits quite properly. So here I have got the hole and I can even screw it just like this. So the screw will go through very easily. So yeah, so we took a proper measurement and yeah, it fits properly. So let's clean it up and it's time to hang it on the wall. And here is the mirror with the three brackets. Now I think I may end up printing one more of these brackets for this top part here, which is although not required because it's easy to just pull it up and remove the mirror just in case it is required. But overall it looks good, it's sturdy and it's not going anywhere. So that's how you can create a part from scratch in Fusion 360 and convert it into a real thing. I hope this video helped. If you have questions, do let me know in the comments area and don't forget to share this video. I'll see you soon in another one.